and a nightmare for old friend Tristan Jarry and the Edmonton Oilers. Crosby versus McDavid. Stu Skinner versus Tristan Jarry. Penguins, Oilers, next. Let's get rolling. Welcome in to Pengnuins Post Game. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. How's it going, Pens fans? Your host of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and Pengnuins Post Game, Scott here. Crosby, Chinakhov, Mantha, and Malkin both score in this 6-2 roundhousing victory in Rogers Place from inside Edmonton, Alberta on Thursday night. Welcome in, Penguins fans. Welcome in, Oiler fans. Here we go, getting you ready for, in case you're a Pittsburgh fan, we'll get you ready for the Vancouver Canuck game coming up later in our show as the Pittsburgh Penguins remain undefeated on this Western Road swing. They've now won 3 games of this Western Road swing since losing in the shootout to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are a Metro Division foe. The last time Chris Knoblauch and Dan Muse faced each other, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers put on what looked like an interesting showdown, but ultimately the Edmonton Oilers came out with the victory. That was on December 7th, back inside PPG Paints Arena. This game on January 22nd, 2020, Thursday night at Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta, finishes 6-2 in favor of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it could have finished 6-4 in favor of the Penguins, just like the game on December 16th finished 6-4 in favor of the Oilers inside PPG Paints Arena. Chris Knoblauch and Dan Muse, the head coaches. Let's take a look at our team records heading into this matchup. The Pittsburgh Penguins enter with a record 24-14-11, going up against a well-rested Edmonton Oilers squad at 25-18. Last time Sid faced his old friend Tristan Jarry, as we'll get into the goaltending matchup in a second, it was just the second start Tristan Jarry had. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins against former goaltender Tristan Jarry for the second time this season, as well as Sidney, Crosby, and Connor McDavid, who in a few weeks, when we get to the Olympic break, will be teammates instead of opponents on Team Canada. This is the first time Jarry is playing in Edmonton against his former team, and it is also the return for Stuart Skinner and Brett Kulak as they return to Edmonton for the first time since the trade between the two players for, of course, the ones that were brought in to Pittsburgh, Kulak and Stuart Skinner. This is the first time they return to their old building as the visiting team. And unfortunately, though, because this is a back-to-back and Stuart got the start against the Calgary Flames the night before, Dan Muse goes with the rotation and turns to Artur Shilovs, who will take on old friend of the Pittsburgh Penguins and former goaltender Tristan Jarry, who Chris Knoblauch counters with. So Stuart Skinner on the bench for this game for Pittsburgh in his return to Edmonton. Connor Ingram also on the bench as we dived into our Between the Pipes segment now. Those are the numbers 74 and 39 on the bench if needed. Number 37 and 35 doing battle between the pipes. Our head coaches, as mentioned, for the teams who came in with records 24-14-11 and 25-18-8 are Dan Muse and Chris Knoblauch. The officiating crew, wearing the numbers number 3, number 17, 93, and 83 were Chris Schellenker. He was wearing the number 17. Chris S. wearing number 3 for the referees. They were wearing the number 93. Killian McNamara and number 83, Matt McPherson. Not really in that order. The first period and the game itself began at 8 minutes after 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Mountain, 2 a.m. in the UK, and 3 a.m. France and Sweden time. And here's how it started. It started off with a bang before we even hit any penalties. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with our first period summary as our period-by-period game breakdown begins before we hit our first break. 22 minutes and 20 seconds in, Anthony Mantha scores. Or did he score? Well, Chris Knoblauch decides to take a timeout to get an extra look at the goal and decides not to challenge it. So Anthony Mantha puts the Penguins on the board early with his 15th goal of the season. Justin Brazeau, his 9th assist of the season. They were on the assist for the 15th goal of the season for Anthony Mantha. But guess what? Justin and Anthony Mantha aren't done yet. Yep, you heard me. They ain't done yet. Literally a few seconds later, at 2 minutes and 42 seconds, Anthony Mantha strikes again. His 16th goal of the season, Justin Brazeau. 10th assist of the season, 2nd assist of the night. Same thing for Anthony Mantha. 2nd goal of the night. And of course, Brett Kulak, the former Oiler, picking up an assist on Anthony's 2nd goal of the game, his 5th of the season. 2-0 Penguins, 2 minutes and 42 seconds in. And in the final moments of the 37-second, 35-second, whatever you want to call it, the Pittsburgh Penguins score again, scoring 37 seconds, 3 goals in under a minute. 37 seconds. I couldn't even keep up. And that's saying something, Penguins fans. I couldn't even keep up trying to get the first goal in there. Because while I was listening to the game last night with the host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, Thomas McGregor, we listened to the first little bit of the game through into the halfway mark of the second period of this game. But I couldn't even keep up after those first 37 seconds, under a minute in this game. But 2 minutes and 57 seconds into the game, Sidney Crosby gets in on the action as the Penguins go up 3-0. Crosby, his 27th goal of the season. Ryan Shea, his 16th goal of the season. Assist of the season. 16th assist of the season for Ryan Shea. Jack St. Ivany picks up his 6th assist of the season. 3-0 Penguins, which would be the score heading to the end of the first period of play. But before the end of the first period, both Pittsburgh and Edmonton take penalties. The first went to Edmonton, number 24, Spencer Stastny. 2-minute minor for interference at 10 minutes and 54 seconds. At the 11-minute, 25-second mark of the period, Sidney Crosby goes to the box for slashing Connor McDavid. He slashed Connor, and Connor was able to draw the penalty on Crosby, a 2-minute minor for Crosby for slashing, at 11 minutes and 25 seconds. This was during an Penguins power play opportunity, and the Oilers short-handed crew get the job done. They get the job done, forcing Crosby to take a penalty 11 minutes and 25 seconds into the first period. But the Penguins hang on to lead 3-0 going into the first intermission, 47 minutes after 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. London, and 3 a.m. Paris and Sweden time. 47 shots on goal for the game and after one period of play. Penguins 9, Oilers 12. They outshot Pittsburgh 12-9 for the first period of play and for the game after one period of play. Let's go to the second period of play, which began 6 minutes after 10 p.m. Eastern, p.m. Mountain, p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Pacific, p.m. Central, 3 a.m. in London, and 4 a.m. in Paris and Sweden. In that period, we start on the penalty side as the Pittsburgh Penguins, I should say the Edmonton Oilers, open the penalty summary with, yep, you guessed it, after Crosby took a penalty, Connor McDavid is caught from Erik Karlsson for a 2-minute minor for slashing. Penguins going back on the power play 3 minutes and 47 seconds into the second period of play. The other penalty went to Ben Kindle, but we'll get to Kindle's penalty a little bit later as we roll on here. During the McDavid penalty, Jake Wallman shoots, he scores. He beats Artur Shilovs for his fourth goal of the season. A shorthanded goal given up by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Matthias Janmark, his 7th assist of the season. 5 minutes and 19 seconds in, the Oilers have cut into the 3-0 lead and made it 3-1. But right after that, and just before the Kindle penalty, which took place at 16 minutes 57 seconds, Kindle to the box for delay of game, puck over the glass at that time. I actually had it at 14 minutes 27 seconds. It was actually 16 minutes 57 seconds of the time of that penalty. Right before that, however, the Pittsburgh Penguins, despite giving up a shorthanded goal, go right back on the attack. Rickard Rakell gets into the fun, putting Pittsburgh back up by 3 with his 9th goal of the season. Evgeny Malkin, we're going to talk about Malkin a little bit more in this period in just a second, but he picks up his 27th assist of the season. And Brian Rust, speaking of Rust, he also scores later in this game. Well, actually, he didn't score in this one, but he does pick up an assist. And in last game, yesterday being Wednesday night's game, I should say, he scored fans half off Rusty Shakes at the Milkshake Factory, valid 3 days after Brian Rust scores on the power play. Well, okay, maybe that is what it is. But anyways, moving on. Rusty with his 21st assist of the season on the Rickard Rakell 9th goal of the year. It's 4-1 Penguins, 12 minutes and 29 seconds into the second period. And then a little later at 14 minutes, 27 seconds, not 26, 27 seconds, Evgeny Malkin makes it 5-1 Penguins, which would ultimately be our score after 40 minutes of play. Evgeny Malkin, 12th goal of the season, unassisted at 14:27 of the second period of play. Oilers outshot the Penguins in that period. No, they did not outshoot the Penguins in that period. It actually was 10-10 in that period. However, the Oilers were outshooting Pittsburgh 19. They did not outshoot the Penguins for the period. Both teams in the second period ended up with 10 shots on goal in total. Penguins now with 19 shots on goal. The Oilers with 22, despite scoring 12 shots on goal in the first period of play, outshooting Pittsburgh 12-9 in that first period of play. 5-1 Penguins. All right, folks, we're going to take a timeout. When we come back, third period action. Were there any penalties called? Well, I can clear that off for you before we get to the break. There were no penalties called in the third period. All of that when Penguins Post Game, Oilers, Penguins continues. Stick with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment. Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis, and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser, and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
We are running through this game here on Penguins Post Game like a butcher's dog. And the Pittsburgh Penguins scored 3 goals in 37 seconds. Not only that, they cruised past the Oilers for the third straight win on their road trip. Here's how they did it in the final moments of the game. Before we get to the third period of play in our game breakdown as our period-by-period summary continues for just a little bit longer, I want to remind you that the goal scorers for the first period, second period on were Anthony Mantha ×2 in the first period, Sidney Crosby also in the first period, in the early mark of the first period. Jake Wallman, the only goal scorer in the second period, short-handed, 4th goal of the year for him, as the Oilers get on the board on a short-handed opportunity. Then Ricard Raquel and Evgeny Malkin with the 4th and 5th goal for Pittsburgh of this hockey game rounded out our score at the end of 40 minutes of play, which, by the way, was not an outshootment between teams. Pittsburgh got one more shot, as did Edmonton. They both got 10 shots on goal in the period. Penguins trailed the Oilers 22-19 at the end of 2 periods of play, despite being outshot in the first period 12-9 by the Oilers. The Oilers would end up outshooting the Penguins 10-4 in the third period, which would give us our final tally in the shots on goal, our final shots on goal tally. But how did it go? Well, let's find out. As I mentioned before the break, no penalties called within the third period of play. Well, that was different compared to the Flames game the other night. We only had 1 penalty in the third, 1 penalty in the first, no penalties in the second. Here we have a penalty in the first for both sides, a penalty in the second for both sides, and no penalties in the third. Here are our goal scorers. Starting off the same way the Penguins kind of started the first period, except this time it was 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the third. But nevertheless, Igor Chinakhov strikes again to put the Penguins up 6-1. They're up by 5 goals, leading Edmonton 6-1 after leading Edmonton by 4 goals, 5-1 at the end of 2 periods of play. Igor Chinakhov's 8th goal of the season. Tommy Novak picks up another assist. Has he picked up one yet? No, he hasn't picked up an assist yet in this game. So he picks up an assist, his 18th of the season. Jack St. Ivany picks up his 7th assist of the season, 6-1 Penguins on the Igor Chinakhov goal. For Jack St. Ivany, that's his 2nd assist of the evening. He got his 1st assist of the evening on the Crosby goal, with Ryan Shea also registering an assist. And again, that goal coming in at 2 minutes and 50 seconds, the Igor Chinakhov goal for Chinakhov. But the Oilers aren't going to surrender 6-1 in a 5-point lead. They will eventually get back within 4 later in the period at 13 minutes and 57 seconds as Matt Sauvoir picks up his 9th goal of the season. Evan Bouchard on the assist, his 38th assist of the season. And Matthias Ekholm, 18th assist of the season for Matthias Ekholm. But the Oilers ultimately fall 6-2 to the Pittsburgh Penguins, despite the Penguins going all out on Edmonton in the first period, in the opening minutes of the first period of play, scoring not 1, not 2, but 3 goals in 30. Yeah, you heard me. They didn't score 1. They didn't score 2. They scored 3 goals on old friend Tristan Jarry right out of the gate in Edmonton. Wow. I never thought I would see the day when the Penguins would come out ready to rock and roll, and they just went rolling and rolling and rolling. Time now for your game stats, and before we go ahead and share a screen to give you our 3 stars of the game, we'll reveal to you the game stats via the NHL app. Download the app for yourself to follow your favorite hockey club all year long. And just before we dive into the stats, a couple of notable outs for this game for Pittsburgh. They were without Christopher Letang, who remains day to day, as we found out before this game began. Kevin Hayes also out for this game. He is a scratch. And Ilya Sorolov also out as well. I think I'm getting pretty good at Ilya for my first few goes. Ilya's name. I think I'm getting pretty good, but I won't let that go to chance. He was a scratch for Pittsburgh as well as Kevin Hayes and Christopher Letang. The Edmonton Oilers without Alec Regula, Kasperi Kapanen, a former Penguin, and goaltender Calvin Pickard also out for this one. Now for our totals. You know the shots on goal total 32-23 in favor of the Oilers. But how else did this game go down? We're about to find out. Here we go. This game saw 51 face-offs, and the Pittsburgh Penguins winning 23 out of 51 for a face-off percentage of 45.1%. Edmonton winning 28 out of 51 face-offs in this one. They win 54.9% of their face-offs, 28 out of 51 face-offs won by the Oilers. The Oilers just about 55% good in the face-off. That a little bit better than Pittsburgh, who won 23 out of 51 face-offs. The one thing that we can agree on, Penguins and Oilers fans, if we wanted to see penalty kills thrive instead of power plays thrive, we certainly got that. 2 for 2 went the Oilers on the PK at Rogers Place on Thursday night. The Penguins also go 2 for 2 on the PK. Both power plays went 0 for 2 on Edmonton and Pittsburgh side. Power play sides, Pittsburgh 0 for 2 on the power play. Edmonton 0 for 2 on the power play as well. Edmonton 2 for 2 on their penalty kill. Pittsburgh 2 for 2, as mentioned, on their penalty kill as well. 4 minutes each spent in the box for Pittsburgh and Edmonton. They both spent 4 minutes in the box with 2 penalties each. Edmonton out-hit Pittsburgh 20-13 in the hits category. Pittsburgh got the upper hand, but not by much. They had 10 blocked shots, the Oilers with 9 blocked shots for the game. All even in the giveaways at 17 giveaways apiece. 17 giveaways for the Oilers, 17 giveaways for the Penguins. And the Penguins have one more takeaway than the Edmonton Oilers do. They finished with 4 takeaways in this game, 3 takeaways for the Oilers at the end of this one. Joe Brand and Colby Armstrong had the call on the radio side. That's how Thomas and I were listening to the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But of course, on the TV side, the trio that I always love listening to on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, well, the duo rather that I love listening to, the old 2-9er Phil Borg and Josh Getzoff had the call on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. And speaking of that, we'll get to that a little bit later in our show. But now, it's time for your 3 stars of the game. Brought to you by on the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins radio and TV networks, respective sponsor. If you would like to sponsor any of our Penguin post-game show coverage or content, you can do so by sending an email to sportsforbeginners podcast8231@gmail.com. With that said, if we had a guest on our show, they would get the graciousness to call out our play of the game, and we will do that in just a moment. But here are your 3 stars of the game. No surprise, they are all Pittsburgh Penguins. Your 3rd star went to Penguins forward and right winger Justin Brazeau. 2-point night for him. 2 assists, 2 points, no goals. He was your 3rd star. Your 2nd star was number 7. I don't know, Mets, maybe you do a better job at saying Evgeny's name than I do. We'll see. 2-point night for Malkin as well. He was your 2nd star. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. You know, I think there was a debate. I think there might have been a debate if there was 2 Sidney Crosby goals. I think there might have been a debate. Will Mantha get the 1st star or will it be Crosby? Well, guess what? It's Anthony Mantha that's your 1st star. He might have been number 39 in your program on Thursday night, but they are your 3 stars of the game. Justin Brazeau, your 3rd star, Evgeny Malkin, your 2nd star, and Anthony Mantha, your 1st star. All right, folks, the play of the game is nearly here, but we're going to take a quick break to get to the play of the game, and when we come back from the break, it's time for a Thursday roundup. There were a couple of games on the ice besides the Penguins and the Oilers. We will break down each and every one of those games before we jump to the play of the game when Penguins Post Game continues. Also, when Penguins Post Game continues, following the Thursday roundup and the play of the game, it's time for the shake of the game. Who's getting it today on this edition of Penguins Post Game? Find out when we continue on Penguins Post Game. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, 2 powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. can't wait. I think I made it. Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Wow, they say time flies when you're having fun. Penguins Post Game is continuing here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, as well as On the Ice and Behind the Benches. Penguins and the Oilers, the topic of conversation. I'm your host, Scott. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We've covered a lot lately on this show, but one thing we haven't touched on, we didn't touch on it in the Calgary recap, was the fact that, guess what, Penguins fans? If you don't already know, we're number 2 in the Metro. 50 games into our season, we now have 61 points, just 6 points behind the division leading. The Pittsburgh Penguins now through 50 games are number 2 in the Metropolitan Division. Now they're not in the wild card round anymore, but they are definitely in a playoff spot, considering where they are division-wise. So hey, if the Penguins keep taking care of their business, and especially if they do the you-know-what that Joe Brand mentioned on the radio last night after the game ended against Edmonton, which we will see if it happens on Sunday night in Vancouver. We will see. It could happen. I don't know, but it could happen. They could be number 1 in the Metro. Oh, by the way, here was an interesting stat for you. You ready for this? I gotta find it now. It's not on my thing now, but I gotta find it. It had to do with Crosby and Malkin, the duo of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And guess what? Despite everything the Pittsburgh Penguins went through last night, here's a stat for you. The Crosby-Malkin record, I should say the Penguins record in games where both Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin score a goal. The Penguins have won 117 games and only lost 10 times and 7 times in overtime or in a shootout when Crosby and Malkin score a goal. That's a pretty intense record. It doesn't even seem real. I agree with it. It doesn't even seem real, but it is. 17, 10, and 7 when Crosby and Gino score together. Wow. And the Penguins nearly put up an extra point, like a touchdown of goals against the Oilers on Thursday night and Connor McDavid. Wow. Talk about getting your money's worth. If you betted on the game, but you betted on Pittsburgh winning the game. But you didn't expect them to score 3 goals in the first 37 seconds of the game. Yet, we weren't even 3 minutes into the hockey game, and the Penguins were already up 3-0 game. Let's take a look at the roundup from Thursday, beginning in Beantown, where the Boston Bruins defeated the Vegas Golden Knights 4-3. Let's go to Montreal. In Montreal, the Buffalo Sabres picked up a 4-2 victory over the Montreal Canadiens. Over in Raleigh, we needed a shootout, and it was the Blackhawks who picked up the win. The shootout winner went to Oliver Moore of the Chicago Blackhawks, who beat the Hurricanes 4-3 in the shootout. In Minneapolis, the Minnesota Wild beat the Detroit Red Wings 4-3. Zach Werenski scores the only goal in Columbus to knock off the Dallas Stars, as the defense and goaltending for Columbus does the rest. They beat the Stars in shutout fashion 1-0. The other game that went to a shootout was the Panthers and the Jets, and it was the Florida Panthers coming out on top on an Anton Lundell shootout winner to win 2-1 over the Winnipeg Jets. And last but certainly not least, the Ottawa Senators were visiting the Nashville Predators, and they dropped 5-3 to the Preds in Nashville. Okay, folks, it's time now for one of my favorite parts of the game recap, the play of the game. But I also love the shake of the game, and we're going to get to the shake of the game in just a matter of moments. But first, it's time for our play of the game. Play of the game for me is really plays of the game. But if I had to pick one, I gotta go to the questionable call. Anthony Mantha's first goal of the game, 15th of the season. Good enough for my play of the game. If you would like to get in on the action for the play of the game, send an email to sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com or lock in on our Discord or WhatsApp group chat. Probably better to do it during the game. And I know we haven't been busy on that, but that's okay. We're working on it, so we will be able to see all of your projections for the player of the game, which is called our shake of the game puck of the game, and of course 3 stars, which were Anthony Mantha, Evgeny Malkin, and Justin Brazeau. Of course, my play of the game, as I mentioned, and we are going to try and play the audio for you here, so hopefully it works for us. It comes courtesy of the old 2-9er Phil Borg and Josh Getzup, who had the call on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Anthony Mantha scores his first goal of the game. Was a little questionable, because Chris Gnarblock called the timeout, and you would expect that he probably would have challenged it, but he did not. But he decided not to. Let's hear Josh Getzoff and the old 2-9er Phil Borg, who had the call. Hopefully the audio works for us. All credit to the Edmonton Oilers Sportsnet broadcast, the Edmonton Oilers themselves, the NHL, Pittsburgh Penguins, and of course, Sportsnet Pittsburgh for any audio that you hear on our show. Here is my play of the game. Mantha tips in game opener. Here we go. No, it's not easy to do. I mean, that's an understatement for me because I don't really play hockey a lot. Well, I mean, I'm not a great skater, but I do watch hockey. That's good enough for my play of the game. But that brings us now to the shake of the game, which was inspired by the Milkshake Factory ad now currently being run by Brian Rust and originally being run when he was a Pittsburgh Penguin. He's now a Tampa Bay Lightning player, but he could go elsewhere eventually. Maybe he returns to Pittsburgh. We don't know. We shall see. Is Jake Gensel. That's what inspired this segment. And without further ado, let's get right down to it. This was not a good night by any means. This was not a good night by any means of the imagination for Tristan Jarry. This was not a good night for Jarry regardless, but I do like that he saved 17 out of the 23 shots he saw. I almost had a feeling that before the 6th goal went by Jarry, Gnarblock was going to say, Ingram, get your gear ready, you're going in. But he let Jarry play the entirety of the game. Jarry saw 23 shots, blocked 17 of them, still gave up 6 goals, ended the game with a save percentage of 7.39 for a total ice time of 60 minutes. He is going to get an honorable mention. Our shake of the game for the Edmonton Oilers is going to go to goal scorer Jake Wallman, who had 3 shots on goal. One of them beat Artur Shilov's, and he is going to get the shake of the game for the Edmonton Oilers. The game puck of the game is going to go to Matt Savoie. Matt Savoie for is that right? Did I have that right? 4 shots on goal, but it's going to go to Matt Savoie regardless. He had the other goal. It was just 1 shot by Matt Savoie, and it went by Artur Shilov. That's good enough for me for a game puck of the game for Matt Savoie. So we have an honorable mention for the shake of the game to Tristan Jarry. Jake Wallman's going to get it for the Oilers for the shake of the game. Game puck of the game is going to go to Matt Savoie. How about for the Pittsburgh Penguins? Well, honorable mention going to Penguins goal scorer Rickard Rakell. 3 shots on goal, 1 goal. Shake of the game is going to go to the puck stopper Artur Shilovs. Stopped 30 of the 32 shots he faced. Gave up 1 short-handed goal and 1 even strength goal. Still finishes the game with 59 minutes and 26 seconds played on the ice. And a save percentage of .938. Pretty nice night for Artur Shilovs. He had a pretty good night. He is going to get our shake of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The game puck of the game, however, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, a lot of deserving candidates, especially the goal scorers. But I'm going to go with Anthony Mantha. 3 shots on goal. 2 of them beat Jari. 1 of them was a little questionable. But Mantha, 2-point night for him. 3 shots on goal. 2 goals. No assists. He had a really great night, and he really kicked this game into overdrive really quickly. So that is why he is going to get the game puck of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Anthony Mantha and Matt Savoie, the game puck of the game recipients for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers. The shake of the game belongs to Jake Wallman on the Oilers side, and on the Penguins side, it's going to puck stopper Artur Shilovs. But the honorable mention around the Jake Wallman shake of the game selection for me goes to Tristan Jarry. He just had a rough night. I'm just going to say this, that Jarry, he had a rough night against his former team and the second time that they will see each other this season. As a result, the Pittsburgh Penguins win 6-2, and now the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins are getting ready for their next matchup. The Pittsburgh Penguins will have to wait a little while. They'll have to wait till Sunday, to be honest, to take on the Vancouver Canucks, who, by the way, are in action tonight. But we will set the scene for the Oilers and the Penguins coming up in just a few short moments after this from our friends at Sienna T Radio. Don't go anywhere, Penguins fans or Oiler fans, because when we return to Penguins Post Game, it's time to set up who is next for Jari and the Oilers, and of course Connor McDavid. And then of course, who's next for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We will get that all to you when we return after this from our friends at Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter one song at a time. Talk to you in a bit. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Penguins beat the Oilers and their former teammate Tristan Jarry in the final matchup between the Oilers and the Penguins. The final score was 6-2 in favor of the Penguins in front of 18,347 fans in attendance at Rogers Place. A game that ended at 34 minutes after 9 p.m. Mountain Time. And of course, that was the local time zone for the Penguins and the Oilers. It also ended on the East Coast at 11 minutes, or at 34 minutes after 11 p.m., 10 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Mountain, as I mentioned, 34 minutes after 9 p.m. Mountain. a.m. in the UK, a.m. in the Sweden and France timeline. 34 minutes after that is how that game ended. And in case you missed it, our three stars of the game, Anthony Mantha, Evgeny Malkin, and Justin Brazeau. It is about time to close this one out and get ready for the Penguins and the Canucks. And while we got some time here, before we set the scene for the Oilers and the Penguins' next games, let's set the scene here on our Friday night of hockey for some great hockey coming up on this Friday night in the NHL. Starting off in Toronto as Mitch Marner makes his return for the first time to Toronto since being traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Puck drops at 7 p.m. Eastern, and it pits the Vegas Golden Knights against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Later at 7 p.m. as well, we also have the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. At 8 p.m. Eastern, we have a showdown between the St. Louis Blues and the Dallas Stars at 8 p.m. Eastern. At 9 p.m. Eastern, the Philadelphia Flyers are in Denver to take on the Colorado Avalanche. That's at 9 p.m. Also at 9 p.m., the Washington Capitals visit the Calgary Flames. And later at 10 p.m. Eastern, the Seattle Kraken host the Anaheim Ducks. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, the Vancouver Canucks host the New Jersey Devils. And over in the Shark Tank, it's the New York Rangers taking on the San Jose Sharks. All three of those games, Vancouver versus New Jersey, Anaheim versus Seattle, and New York versus San Jose at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. At 9 p.m. Eastern tonight, the Calgary Flames battle the Washington Capitals. The Philadelphia Flyers battle the Colorado Avalanche. At 8 p.m., we've got the Blues and the Stars. And coming up in moments from now, as it is 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got Mitch Marner and the Golden Knights coming to Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also, we've got the Windy City featuring the Chicago Blackhawks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Okay, folks, time to set the scene. Starting off with the Edmonton Oilers. Here's what you could expect up next on the Oilers schedule as we come into our final minutes of our show. The Edmonton Oilers will continue their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 game homestand this Saturday night when they take on the Washington Capitals at Rogers Place at 10 p.m. Eastern. They will then play as they continue in their 8 game homestand, which started off with a 5-0 win over the St. Louis Blues, a 2-1 loss to the New Jersey Devils, and then a 6-2 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They will kick it off, continuing their homestand tomorrow at the time of our recording, which is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. They will kick things back into high gear against the Capitals on Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. The Anaheim Ducks are in Edmonton on Monday, January the 26th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. At 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday next week, the Oilers and Connor McDavid host the San Jose Sharks before Minnesota comes to town to close out the month of January at 10 p.m. Eastern on the final Saturday of the first month of 2026. Starting with the Caps on Saturday, Ducks on Monday, the Sharks on Thursday, and the Wild next Saturday, January 31st, 2026. So wrap it up with a Austin Matthews versus Connor McDavid showdown at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on February 3rd. So you've got Washington Saturday, Anaheim Monday, San Jose next Thursday, next Saturday Minnesota, and then the following Tuesday to be exact, not this Tuesday coming up, but it's the Maple Leafs versus the Oilers. But first it's Washington, then Anaheim, then San Jose, then Minnesota, then Toronto, before the Oilers go head-to-head before the Olympic break with the Calgary Flames in another Battle of Alberta. Well, one thing's for sure, the Pittsburgh Penguins have certainly won both games in Alberta. But who do they face next? Well, here we go. Heading into the Olympic break, the Pittsburgh Penguins will gear up for a showdown on Sunday night in Vancouver against the Vancouver Canucks. Then they'll head home for 3 games against the Chicago Blackhawks. Next Thursday at 7 p.m. afternoon matinee game against the New York Rangers at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on next Saturday afternoon. Then the Ottawa Senators are in town on Monday night, February 2nd, 2026 at 7 p.m. Eastern to close out that 3-game homestand. And let's see, you got Vancouver this Sunday, Chicago coming up on Thursday, Rangers coming up next Saturday on the 31st of January, then the Senators. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and after their 3-game homestand wraps up with the Senators, they will hit the road to Long Island, New York to kick off on the next night after the Ottawa game, a showdown with the New York Islanders at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Islanders and the Penguins, before an off day on February 4th, and then it's showtime in Buffalo, New York, before the Penguins return home to face the New Jersey Devils after the Olympic break. So they've got Vancouver Sunday, Chicago next Thursday, New York next Saturday, Ottawa on Monday, February 2nd, 2026, and the New York Islanders coming up next as well. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. A back-to-back within the next 5 games for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they get closer to the Olympic break, which is just 3 games at home and 3 games on the road, including the wraparound of this 4-game road trip they're currently on in the West that concludes tomorrow Sunday night in Vancouver. For now, Penguins fans, we will talk to you then. And without further ado, that is pretty much going to do it for this episode of Penguins Post Game. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Brazeau has just left the building. That's going to do it for us here on Penguins Post Game. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to catch up with you real soon. But until then, Penguins fans, always remember that we cheer loud and proud for the black and gold, saying, "Let's go Pens." We'll see you next time, Penguins fans. This has been Penguins Post Game. I'm Scott McGregor saying Penguins win 6-2 over the Edmonton Oilers. They get even in the season series and will look to do the you-know-what in baseball on this 4-game road trip on Sunday. We'll talk to you either on Monday or right after Vancouver versus Pittsburgh. Last time the Penguins played the Canucks, they beat the Canucks 5-1 back in October. Can the Canucks get even, or will the Penguins ultimately do the you-know-what on this road trip that you could see in baseball in a 4-game series / 3-game series? The answers to be revealed after the next Pens game, which is against the Vancouver Canucks. And where will their record be when we play them? Well, it's at 17, 28, and 5. Could it stay that way heading in? Probably not. We won't know until they hit the ice. That's it for us. I'll talk to you after the Pens and the Canucks. Let's go Pens! This road trip has been fun for the Penguins, but can it get even more fun against Vancouver? We'll find out on Sunday. See you then. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.